Hey guys, it's Sam and this is my December wrap-up. This wrap-up is coming to you a little late because I am pre-filming a ton of videos and I was not reading a ton over the holidays, so I wanted to finish up a book before filming this, and yeah, it was just kind of a mess. So this is a little late, but you get the picture. The first book that I read in December was Frozen Tides by Morgan Rhodes. This is a review copy that I requested from Penguin, so I got to read this a little bit before everybody else, about a week before. But I love this series. You guys know this is one of my favorite series of all time, and this is the fourth book in the Fallen Kingdom series, so I can't say much about it, but I will link my spoilery gush video. I just did a spoilery video because I figure at this point there's no point doing a spoiler-free review of later books in the series like this because you really can't say anything spoiler-free about it, but I love this one. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I tabbed it all up, and I'm so excited for the rest of the series. There's a lot of things that happen in this book that are huge and are going to really shape the rest of the series, and I can't wait. Oh, I'm so excited. The next book that I read was Persephone by Caitlin Bevis. This is the first book in the Daughters of Zeus trilogy, I believe it is, but it is a Hades and Persephone retelling. I've done a full review on it, which I will also link because there's really not much I can say about it. I enjoy this Hades and Persephone retelling. I typically have a lot of problems with Hades and Persephone retelling, so I really enjoy this one. It's not perfect, but it's fun, it's short, it's fast-paced. I enjoy the characterizations of Hades and Persephone in this one, and I'm going to continue on with this series. I gave it 4 stars. I then read Soundless by Rochelle Mead. This is another book that I requested from Penguin, and I did not enjoy it. As you guys probably already know, this is a standalone fantasy from Rochelle Mead. It is supposed to be a fantasy with Chinese influences mixed in. It's about a village on top of a mountain where everybody is deaf, and they send down medals to somebody at this end of the line, and they send up food, and one day people start going blind in her village as well as deaf, and her and another character go on a mission down to the bottom of the mountain to see kind of what's going on, if they can help their people, blah blah blah. Basically that's it, and I said fantasy in quotations because this is not a fantasy, okay? There is one element of kind of fantasy-ishness towards the very end. It's in the last like 30 pages or so, the last chapter I believe, and even that is super weak. I didn't even really understand that fantasy element, and it's something that could be really cool, and it just wasn't. If they would have had that part through the majority of the book, that would have made more sense to me as a fantasy, but this, as it is more of a dystopian, and I did not enjoy it at all. I pretty much skim read the last 40%, half of the book, because I wasn't enjoying it, and this book's super short, so while I think there are some elements that could have been expanded upon, and it might have made it better, I also didn't have a good time reading it, and it was short, so I'm kind of okay with it being short. Basically, I really did enjoy the story, and I gave it 1 star. That is also really sad because that is the first Rochelle Mead book that I have read. I do plan to read the Vampire Academy series, and I want to read her new Glittering Court series. I think that's going to be good because I think she's going back to long books, and I think from what this was, I think she might do better with long books because this was just too short and it's so many issues. I'm going to be doing a full review on Soundless, so if you want more of my extended thoughts, you can get that there. The next book that I read was Landline by Rainbow Rowell. This is an adult novel from Rainbow Rowell, and it's about our main character, Georgie, who's having a lot of issues with her husband. They are fighting a lot, and she ends up staying home for Christmas to work because she's finally getting her big break, and this really kind of sets off everything with her and her husband, and he ends up going with her 2 kids to his parents' house where they were supposed to go for Christmas. So Georgie's really struggling with this, and she ends up staying at her mom's house a lot, and while she's at her mom's house, she ends up calling her husband from a landline phone, and she ends up speaking to her husband from back when they first started dating. A lot of people really criticize this story. I absolutely loved it. I'm not sure if it's because I'm more of the age range and more of the relationship range for this story, but I found this to be a very realistic story. I have read a couple other Rainbow Rowell books and haven't really enjoyed them. I find them a little too unrealistic, a little too over the top, but this I found very realistic. There are a lot of good quotes in here just about relationships and how it's not like everybody thinks it is when you're younger where, oh, I'm gonna meet my perfect person, it's gonna be perfect, and that's it, we're just gonna be perfect, and we're gonna cuddle under the blankets, and we're gonna watch Dr. Who together, and they're going to kiss my scars and kiss away my tears, and everything will be fine. No, that is not how things work, and you have to work at relationships, and this was really reflective of that, and I absolutely loved it. There's a quote in here that I feel really summarizes the whole story and the way that the story kind of looks at love, and it's when Georgie is talking to her younger sister, and her younger sister is asking how she knew that Neil, Georgie's husband, was the one. And Georgie says, "You'll see, it's more like you meet someone and you fall in love and you hope that person is the one, but then at some point you have to put down your chips. You just have to make a commitment and hope that it's right." And I think that really shows through in the story. I'm going to be doing a full review on this one. I absolutely adored it, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I then read a bunch of graphic novels to wrap up my year in an attempt to get to my Goodreads goal, which I did do. The first graphic novel I read was The Fade Out Volume 1 by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. This is a story that's told in the kind of film noir fashion and is about the murder of a rising star in old Hollywood. There are also a lot of other kind of things going on in here, and that is why I really didn't end up enjoying this story. There's a lot of threads happening, and I understand this is the first volume, they're setting a lot of things up, but it was kind of confusing, and also most of the characters just didn't really seem like they were well distinguished from one another. I lost track of who was who. There is kind of a character guide in the beginning as to like who's who and how they are connected a little bit, but at the same time you really shouldn't need that, and the characters are so similar that they just kind of all bled together, and I didn't really care about any of them. The only character that I kind of cared about was actually the character that was murdered, and you find out that she's murdered at the very beginning of the story, so I didn't enjoy it. I think this is still worth checking out if you are a fan of film noir and stuff like that, but honestly, I don't think the characters were very well done, and that is more important to me than the art style or anything, so I end up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. The next graphic novel I read was Rat Queens Volume 1, Sass and Sorcery, and I absolutely loved this one. I don't know why I was putting it off. There's so much hype around this one. I think that's what was kind of making me a little bit skeptical about it, but this is a story of a band of all-female mercenaries that are fighting things in this magical world, and it's so much fun. There is a lot more that's going to be to it in the rest of the series. I think it kind of sets up the like big bad for the rest of the series, but I loved this so much. If you're into fantasy, and if you're into especially like D&D and stuff, if you play any kind of like RPGs, tabletop RPGs, there are so many references to tabletop RPGs in here that just made me so happy. Obviously, you don't have to play those to get into this, but if you enjoy fantasy at all, and you enjoy any of those nerdy references, there's so many in here, and I absolutely loved it. I loved all the characters. Again, wasn't expecting to love all the characters. I love the whole band of characters. Obviously, I have my favorites, but I loved them, and it just made my nerdy little heart happy. So this one got 5 out of 5 stars. Sadly, I ended my reading year on a low note, which is actually a pun, and I didn't even mean to do that. I read Low Volume 1, The Delirium of Hope. So this is a graphic novel that I actually hated. I didn't even bother to finish it. I DNF'd it about 40% of the way through because I knew that I was just going to skim read it just to give it a rating, and so I already knew what my rating was going to be at that point, so I didn't even need to finish it at that point. Nothing could have happened that would have made me change my mind about the rating about this book. Nothing. Nothing could have happened. And I know this is a series that has kind of mixed reviews. People either love it or hate it, and I definitely fall in the hate it camp. I think that the art, well, I thought was going to be really beautiful, just didn't really appeal to me. It's that kind of like darker, grittier art, which I kind of get into, but paired with the story, which I felt was disturbing at points just for the sake of being disturbing, it just really bothered me. So the combination of art style with that element of just, we're going to be in your face, just to be in your face, was really obnoxious. And again, it's just a storyline that I didn't really care about. I feel like I've seen before, and I wasn't willing to invest any amount of time in once I saw what it was going to be. So sadly, because I love this cover and it's one of my most favorite covers that I've ever seen in a graphic novel, and I wanted to love this premise so much, I had to give this one 1 star. So that was it for my reading in December. So I ended up starting 2015 with a 5-star book and finishing 2015 with a 1-star book. Oddly enough, that's kind of how my year went, so it's really kind of indicative of 2015, to be honest. So comment down below and let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!